Francisco Goya, the renowned Spanish painter, created a series of paintings known as the black paintings during the later years of his life. Between 1819 and 1823, these works were originally painted directly onto the walls of his house, known as the Quinta del Sordo, House of the Deaf Man. Near Madrid, they are characterized by their dark themes and somber tones, reflecting Goya's bleak outlook on humanity and the turbulent period of Spanish history during which they were created. After Goya's death in 1828, the paintings were discovered in the Quinta del Sordo. In the late 19th century, the paintings were transferred to canvas by Salvador Martínez Cubells under the direction of Baron Émile d'Erlanja, who subsequently donated them to the Spanish state. They are now housed in the Museo del Prado in Madrid, where they continue to be studied and admired for their raw emotional power and technical mastery. The black paintings stand as a testament to Goya's genius and his ability to convey the darkest aspects of human nature through his art. These paints, along with their description, goes as: Painting number 1. Atropos. The Fates depicts the three fates from Greek mythology, who were responsible for determining the destinies of humans. The painting is dark and somber, reflecting the ominous nature of its theme. The three figures are Clotho, who spins the thread of life; Lachesis, who measures it; and Atropos, who cuts the thread. Symbolizing death, the figures are rendered with ghostly pallor and haunting expressions. They seem to be floating in an undefined, dark space. Adding to the eerie atmosphere, this painting symbolizes the inescapable fate of death and the powerlessness of humans in the face of destiny. Goya's depiction of the fates may reflect his own preoccupation with mortality and the uncontrollable forces that govern life. The somber tones and ghostly figures evoke a sense of dread and inevitability, suggesting that life is transient and ultimately controlled by forces beyond human comprehension. Painting number 2. Two Old Men, portrays two elderly men, one of whom appears to be a monk or priest. The men are engaged in a conversation, with the older figure leaning in and listening intently to the other. The background is dark and indistinct, focusing attention on the figures themselves. The expressions on their faces are melancholic, and there is a palpable sense of weariness and resignation. This painting is often interpreted as a reflection on old age, wisdom, and the inevitable decline that comes with it. The presence of the monk suggests themes of spirituality and the contemplation of mortality. The intimate interaction between the two figures might imply the sharing of life's experiences and sorrows. The dark palette and somber mood convey a deep sense of introspection and the passage of time. Painting number 3. Two Old Men Eating Soup, is a surreal depiction of two elderly, almost skeletal figures sharing a meal. Their faces are gaunt and exaggerated, with sunken eyes and hollow cheeks. The figures are hunched over a bowl of soup, with one of them spooning the contents into his mouth. The background is dark and undefined, placing emphasis on the eerie figures and their actions. This painting is often seen as a commentary on the frailty and decline of old age. The grotesque depiction of the figures suggests a deep sense of morbidity and despair. The act of eating soup, a basic and mundane activity, is transformed into a disturbing scene that highlights the vulnerability and suffering of the elderly. The stark, minimalistic composition and dark tones emphasize the themes of mortality and the ludicrous nature of human existence in its final stages. Painting number 4. Fight with Cudgels, depicts two men engaged in a fierce fight using cudgels, which are thick sticks. The men are locked in combat, swinging their weapons at each other. What's striking is that both men are trapped up to their knees in the ground, giving the impression they are sinking into the earth. The background is a desolate landscape, adding to the sense of futility and struggle. This painting symbolizes the senselessness and destructive nature of conflict. The fact that the men are sinking into the ground suggests that their fight is not only pointless but also leads to mutual destruction. It can be seen as a commentary on the human condition, highlighting how conflicts can consume individuals and societies, ultimately leading nowhere. The dark tones and desolate setting underscore the bleakness of such struggles. Painting number 5. Witches' Sabbath, shows a gathering of witches around a large, ominous goat, which represents the devil. The scene is chaotic and dark, with grotesque, deformed figures engaging in various activities. Some figures appear to be in trance-like states, while others seem to be performing rituals. The goat, with its menacing presence, dominates the composition. This painting reflects Goya's fascination and horror with superstitions, witchcraft, and the darker sides of human nature. It critiques the irrational beliefs and fears that can lead to hysteria and moral decay. The witch's frenzied behavior around the goat symbolizes the surrender to evil and the loss of rational thought. Goya's use of dark, shadowy tones enhances the eerie and disturbing atmosphere, emphasizing the nightmarish quality of the scene. Painting number 6. Men Reading, depicts a group of men intensely focused on reading something. Possibly a book or a document. The scene is set against a dark, undefined background, which keeps the focus on the men and their activity. The men's expressions are serious and absorbed, suggesting deep contemplation or concern. This painting can be interpreted as a reflection on the search for knowledge and the power of information. The intense focus of the men on reading suggests the importance of understanding and learning, especially during times of crisis or uncertainty. The dark background may symbolize the ignorance or darkness that knowledge seeks to illuminate. Goya's choice to depict this scene among the black paintings indicates his belief in the value of intellectual pursuit amid a world filled with chaos and despair. Painting number 7. Judith and Holofernes, depicts a dramatic moment from the biblical story where Judith, a Jewish heroine, beheads Holofernes, an Assyrian general who threatened her people. In the painting, Judith is shown holding a large sword and the severed head of Holofernes. Her expression is one of determination and resolve, while Holofernes' lifeless body is partially visible. Draped in shadow, this painting represents themes of bravery, justice, and the struggle against oppression. Judith's act of beheading Holofernes is a powerful symbol of triumph over tyranny and evil. The dark, intense atmosphere of the painting highlights the gravity of her action and the sacrifices made for freedom and safety. Goya's portrayal of Judith as strong and resolute underscores the idea of inner strength and moral courage in the face of danger. Painting number 8. A Pilgrimage to San Isidro, shows a chaotic and eerie procession of people making their way to the shrine of San Isidro, the patron saint of Madrid. The figures are grotesque and distorted, with exaggerated expressions and forms. The scene is crowded and tumultuous, with a dark, oppressive background adding to the sense of unease. This painting critiques the blind faith and superstitious practices prevalent in society. The distorted, almost nightmarish depiction of the pilgrims suggests Goya's disdain for mindless devotion and the irrational behaviors that can arise from it. The dark and crowded composition reflects the suffocating nature of such mass movements and the loss of individuality in the face of collective hysteria. Goya is highlighting the potential dangers of fanaticism and the need for reason and critical thinking. Painting number 9. Fantastic Vision, depicts two ghostly figures riding horses in the sky above a group of people on the ground. The figures on horseback appear otherworldly and ominous, while the people below seem unaware or indifferent to the spectacle above. The scene is surreal and dreamlike, with a stark contrast between the ethereal riders and the dark, undefined landscape. This painting can be seen as a representation of the clash between reality and the supernatural or the unseen forces that influence human lives. The ghostly riders in the sky symbolize the unknown or the irrational fears that loom over humanity. The indifference of the people below suggests a disconnect between the visible world and the hidden forces that affect it. Goya's use of surreal imagery and dark tones emphasizes the mysterious and often incomprehensible nature of these influences, urging viewers to acknowledge the complexities of human existence beyond the surface. Painting number 10. Pilgrimage to the Fountain of San Isidro, depicts another religious procession. Similar to A Pilgrimage to San Isidro, the scene is filled with people making their way to the fountain. Believed to have miraculous healing powers, the figures are distorted and exaggerated, with a chaotic and frenzied atmosphere dominating the composition. The dark background adds a sense of foreboding. This painting criticizes the irrationality and superstitions associated with religious pilgrimages. The grotesque figures and chaotic scene highlight the madness and hysteria that can accompany blind faith. Goya seems to be questioning the effectiveness of such practices and suggesting that they may be more about collective frenzy than genuine spiritual or physical healing. The dark, oppressive tones reflect the artist's skepticism and concern about the dangers of uncritical religious fervor. Painting number 11. The Dog, is a minimalistic and haunting painting showing a dog's head emerging from the lower part of the canvas, seemingly looking up. The vast, empty space around the dog is a muted, sandy color, creating a sense of isolation and desolation. The dog's expression appears to be one of longing or helplessness. This painting is often interpreted as a symbol of loneliness and despair. The dog's small, isolated figure against the vast emptiness evokes a powerful feeling of vulnerability and abandonment. The lack of detailed background forces the viewer to focus on the dog's plight, emphasizing themes of isolation and the struggle to find meaning in an indifferent world. Goya's use of minimalism here is highly effective in conveying deep emotional resonance with very few elements. Painting number 12. Saturn devouring his son, depicts the mythological titan Saturn Cronus consuming one of his children to prevent a prophecy that one of them would overthrow him. Saturn's eyes are wild and terrified, and he is in the act of biting into the lifeless body of his child. With blood and flesh vividly depicted, the scene is gruesome and intense. Set against a dark, undefined background, this painting represents themes of time, power, and destruction. Saturn's desperate act of consuming his child is a horrifying symbol of the lengths to which one might go to maintain power and control. The dark, violent imagery reflects Goya's view on the destructive nature of absolute power and the fear it instills. It can also be seen as a commentary on the cyclical nature of violence and the inevitability of downfall. Despite efforts to prevent it, the intense emotional and visual impact of the painting highlights the darker aspects of human nature and the consequences of unchecked power. Painting number 13. La Leocadia, shows a woman, believed to be Leocadia Weiss, Goya's companion. Dressed in mourning clothes, she is seated or leaning against a tomb-like structure. With a somber and contemplative expression, the background is dark and sparse. Keeping the focus on her figure, this painting conveys themes of mourning, loss, and reflection. The presence of Leocadia in mourning attire suggests a personal connection to death and the passage of time. Her contemplative pose and the dark, subdued palette create an atmosphere of melancholy and introspection. Goya's choice to depict her in this manner may reflect his own feelings of sadness and the inevitability of death. It highlights the intimate and emotional aspects of grief and the human experience of loss. Painting number 14. Heads in a landscape, shows several severed heads lined up against a bleak and desolate background. The heads appear to be lifeless, with expressions frozen in pain or fear. The landscape is dark and undefined, with muted tones contributing to a sense of desolation and horror. This painting is often interpreted as a stark commentary on violence and the brutality of human conflict. The severed heads symbolize the casualties and inhumanity that result from war and oppression. By isolating the heads in a barren landscape, Goya emphasizes the isolation and dehumanization that accompany such acts of violence. The dark tones and minimalist setting highlight the gruesome reality of death and the consequences of human cruelty. Goya's portrayal of this macabre scene serves as a powerful reminder of the devastating impact of violence and the loss of individuality in the face of mass brutality. The painting reflects his deep disillusionment with the conflicts and atrocities of his time, offering a somber meditation on the fragility of human life and the pervasive nature of suffering. Goya's black paintings reveal dark themes of human suffering, conflict, and superstition, reflecting his bleak outlook on humanity and the turbulent times he lived through, marked by stark, haunting imagery. Now if you like this video, then don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more such informative videos, controversies, conspiracies and historical events.